Nkem was a straight man who always went to church. He prayed, read his Bible, paid his tithes diligently, and told everyone to obey God's rules. But in his heart, he loved money more than anything. His wife, Adora, often told him that his love for money would bring trouble, but Nkem did not listen. He would do anything because of money. Nkem's daughter, Grace, was a kind and gentle girl who never disobeyed her father's orders. She wanted to marry for love, but her father chose a rich man, Obinna, for her. Nkem believed Obinna's wealth would make their life easy, so he compelled Grace to marry Obinna. Grace didn't love Obinna, but she obeyed her father. Grace's marriage was nothing like she dreamed. Obinna was unkind and cruel to her. He shouted at her, called her names, and even hit her sometimes. Grace was disappointed and her heart broken. She cried every night, but her father told her to stay because of the money Obinna gave them. Adora tried to talk to Nkem. Can't you see Grace is unhappy? Money isn't everything, but Nkem waved her off. She will be fine. Obinna is rich. That's all that matters, he said. One rainy evening, Obinna was driving Grace home from an event when a heated argument erupted between them. At a point, Obinna lost control of the car and it skidded off the road and hit a tree. Obinna got out with just a scratch, but Grace couldn't move. With the help of people around, she was immediately rushed to a hospital. Mrs. Grace, we have tried our best, but at this point, I have to be sincere with you. Your spinal cord was badly affected during the accident and it will cost you your legs. Amidst confusion and fear, she asked, "What are you trying to say, doctor?" "It means that you need an urgent surgery which will depend if you will be able to walk again." Grace was devastated and heartbroken. She regretted being her father's daughter. After some weeks, the doctor came back again, but this time he couldn't break the news to Grace, so he called her mother, Adora, into his office and said, "Mama, I know this is a tough time for you and your family. Seeing your daughter in that condition must be very painful, but you have to be strong for her at this moment." "Is there something you want to tell me?" she interrupted. "After a series of tests and diagnoses, we discovered that your daughter will not be able to conceive in her lifetime because of the accident." Adora sat still. She felt the world was coming to an end in her daughter's life. She walked back into her daughter's world, but could not control her emotions. In no distant time, Grace noticed her mother's uneasiness. "Mama, you have been acting strange since you came out of the doctor's office. Is there a problem?" Adora tried to hide the information, but what's the point, she thought. She explained everything to Grace and tried to console her with the words of God. It was at this point that Grace started questioning her existence. "God, why me?" she muttered to herself. The doctor made estimation of Grace's surgery and told them what it will cost to get the surgery done. $10,000? How are we supposed to raise such amount of money? "Please, doctor, help my daughter. You can begin the surgery, we will pay eventually." "I'm really sorry, Mrs. Adora. There's nothing I can do at this point. The surgery won't even happen here. When you raise the money, Grace will be taken to a hospital outside the country for the surgery. I'm sorry, but you have to do your best." After a week, Grace was discharged. She was now confined on a wheelchair. The doctor encouraged her to seek financial help from people to get her treatment done. Back home, Grace was so bittered. She felt worthless and hardly smiled. The sight of her father disgusted her and reminded her of everything that she has been through. She thought of a way to make him pay for her pains. By now, Obinna had lost it. He cared less of his wife and family members and gallivanted the town with different women. My in-laws, I have not come here for any friendly visit. Rather, I have come to let you know the decision I have taken, Obina said. I am grateful that you gave me your daughter's hand in marriage, but right now, I don't think I can continue with this marriage thing. Your daughter is now useless to me. She can't walk, she can't even bear me children. She is now a liability to me, he said as he squeezed his face. I want a divorce. And as for money for the treatment, I don't have it. You will hear from my lawyer soon. Make sure you sign the papers, he said arrogantly and left. There is nothing left for me here, Grace thought. I have become a liability. I can't be a mother and my husband has left me. There is nothing to live for. Pain has turned me into a bitter woman. I can't continue like this, she wept bitterly. I will end this pain. It's too much for me to bear. That afternoon, Nkem has gone out for his business, and Adora had rushed to the market to pick some things. Grace pushed her wheelchair to the kitchen and picked up a bottle of a dangerous pesticide and gulped the content into her stomach as she awaited her death. Help me! Help me! Adora screamed as she entered the house and found Grace on the kitchen floor, lifeless with whitish substance coming out of her mouth and nose. She picked up the bottle of pesticide and discovered it was empty. I'm finished, she said. Somebody help me, she kept screaming as neighbors trooped into their house, and with their help, they rushed Grace back to the hospital. What happened to her, Mama? Asked the doctor. She consumed a bottle of a pesticide. Please help my daughter. But I warned you not to leave her alone all by herself. Please, doctor, do anything you can to save my child, Adora cried. As the doctor walked towards the passage, Adora rushed to meet him. Doctor, is she stable now? Can I go in and see her? The doctor replied softly, We tried our best, but we lost her. If only you had brought her earlier before now, maybe she wouldn't have died. My condolences, Mrs. Adora. Please take heart. Call your husband to come see her so we can move her to the mortuary. Adora fell to the ground, rolled herself and cried her eyes out. Some of her neighbors who stayed back tried to console her. Grace was covered with a blue linen and was laid on a stretcher while they waited for Mr. Nkem. Grace could feel her soul leaving her body. She saw herself walking down a lonely and unfamiliar path. She knew she was dead. She walked for hours without seeing anyone or building. Finally, she saw a gate with a very high fence and decided to go in. As she knocked on the gate, two celestial beings came out. What are you doing here? One of them asked. I am seeking for a place of peace, Grace answered. No one called you here, so you have to go back. There is so much pain back there. I'm sorry, I can't go back. I have come that my soul will have peace, Grace replied. Your mission over there is not yet complete. Go back and finish your assignment. What is my mission and how can I achieve it? I can't walk. I can't do anything for myself. Over there, I'm just worthless. Please allow me to go inside and have peace. I've been walking for hours. You were sent there for a reason. Through you, your father will be drawn to God, and people around will testify of the power of God. Your testimony will inspire many, so don't give up now. Firstly, you have to forgive your father, for you have found favor in the eyes of God. The two celestial beings held their hands together and touched the areas where the accident had affected her and said, Peace, be still. They took her to a tunnel and asked her to jump into it. She was scared at first, but they assured her that she was safe. Then she jumped into the tunnel. Back at the hospital, it was all mourning and sorrowful. After about 5 hours, Nkem arrived and was taken to where her daughter was laid. He opened the linen that was used to cover her body, and tears dropped from his eyes. He realized that he had ruined his daughter's life by himself because of his love for money. You did this to her, Nkem. It's your fault, he blamed himself. He was broken and wept bitterly close to her body as he asked God to forgive him. It was time to move her to the mortuary. The nurses came in to carry her body. As they pushed the stretcher, Grace sneezed and moved her hands weakly. Out of shock, the nurses uncovered her and met the surprise. Her eyes were open. She's alive! She's alive! The nurses screamed in shock. The doctor rushed out to meet them. He ordered them to bring her back inside immediately. They quickly ran some tests to check her vitals and other things and discovered she was conscious and stable. I was very sure when I confirmed her dead. I have never seen anything like this in my years of being a doctor, he said in shock. What happened? Why are we back in the hospital? Grace asked her mother weakly. Just relax. God has given us victory. I will explain everything to you later. Grace gestured her mother to come help her into her wheelchair. She wanted to use the restroom. As her mother held her, she couldn't feel the unusual pain down her limbs. She moved her legs and it felt normal. Slowly, she moved her legs down the bed and felt strength in her once paralyzed legs. With faith, she stood up and took a step, another step, and repeatedly. The doctor diagnosed Grace again and confirmed that she was permanently healed from all the injuries she sustained during the accident. The news spread like wildfire all over the hospital and across the neighborhood. Nkem and Adora could not contain their joy. They sang songs of praises and danced around. Back home, people came from far and near to witness this great miracle. I have sinned against God and against you, my daughter. I let my love for money push you into ruining your life. Please forgive me, my child, Nkem said, remorseful. You are my father and I have forgiven you. They embraced themselves and glorified God. One day, news spread in the town that Obinna had been arrested. He was caught making money through fraud. His accounts and properties were seized by the government, and he was sentenced to jail. And his supposed new wife ran off with another man on hearing the news. The love of money is truly the root of all evil, Nkem said, shaking his head. Grace began to feel hope again. Her faith in God grew stronger, and she started smiling more. God had not forgotten me, she said. Because of the love that Grace had for children, she couldn't wait for when she would remarry and start having kids. So she visited an orphanage and adopted a little beautiful girl and named her Mercy. Mercy brought so much joy to Grace's life. She sang, danced, and made Grace laugh every day. Nkem and Adora loved her too. Grace began sharing her story with other people around her. She told them about God's love and how he had helped her through her pain. Grace learned to forgive Obinna completely. Holding on to anger only hurts me, she thought to herself. She started a business, making and selling clothes. She was happy and independent. She looked back on her life and saw how God had been faithful through it all. Truly, his grace is amazing, she said. Her story was a true testament of God's power and grace.